And share my screen. All right. So obviously, first thing to do is to open Workday. If you have new procurement card transactions, they're going to come in under your bell, and you'll button that says Verify Procurement Card Transactions. You'll be able to click on that and actions that way. If you don't see anything under your bell, or if you want to go in a different way, you can always type in Verify Procurement Card Transactions. You'll hit this box. I'm going to get an error because I don't have any, but it will pop up with anything left for you to verify. Today I'm going to do Verify for a Worker. I'm going to pick my PCard holder. It's running a little slow on this Friday afternoon. Okay. So you'll see there are 3 transactions left to verify. I can select all and move them all into a report, but for now I'm just going to pick 2. We get into the report, you'll see lines over here. And then if I decide, you know what, I actually didn't want to verify this one transaction, you can hit the trash can button right here to delete it. Otherwise, you would need to verify both lines. You can't add anything back into this report. So once you delete it, you can't add it back. You can't go back to verify transactions and try and put something in this report. Once it's created, this is what you have. So let's start with this first one, Farley Printing. So you don't need to touch anything at the top here. We're going to go straight down to transaction details. And there are really 3 things that you need to touch and change every single time. So you're going to need to enter your spend category, your memo, and put an attachment. I would always suggest making sure your fund and cost center are appropriate for the charges. You can change these, update them, you can leave them the same. And then if you keep scrolling, you're going to have financing stores, project, program, grants, all the way over. If you're unsure about these, you probably use them. But if you have a grant, you'll know what to enter there based on what your grant manager or grant accountant has told you. Okay, so let's just verify this one transaction as a basic transaction. So for spend category, maybe we'll put advertising. So you just start to type in the word. If we look at food, we're going to get a couple options: food, food services, animal food. If we look at supplies, we'll get even more, 75 options. And if you just click your 3 little dots in category, you're going to see a full list of options. So if you're typing something in and you're just not getting what you think should pop up, you can always just look through the full list and try and decide what works best. So for this one, we're just going to stick with advertising. Then you need to put your memo. This is going to be your business purpose. Remember, this is why you purchased something, not what you purchased. So if at Farley we printed business cards, we're going to say business cards for a person. So I'll just put this card holder, Trevin Hunter. Remember, we can see what you purchased based on your receipt. We want to know why you purchased something. For this transaction, I'm not going to update the fund or cost center. We'll get to that in a little bit. And then you'll attach your file. You can either select and then choose from your desktop, or you can drag and drop. And that's the basics of verifying a transaction. 3 pretty simple steps, and you would hit submit. Because I have 2 lines, when I hit submit, it's going to give me an error, but I'll go ahead and show you that. This error says spend category is missing for a line of PCTV and gives us our name. PCTV stands for Procurement Card Transaction Verification. And anytime you do that, you just need to go over and look at your lines and verify the next one. For our next transaction, we're going to look at a grant error. So if you have a grant, you probably know that all the grants haven't been loaded yet. I believe that's slated for the middle of November. So if you have a grant, you can enter that information over here, but it can be very specific. So I have an example that I'm going to change. I'm just going to put fund and cost center for now. So we'll pick grant fund. Our cost center is going to be 305 LMPD JAG. This is federally funded. And I know all of this information because I've looked at this grant. If you have any questions about what you should enter, we can look at the mapping table later, or you can reach out to your grant manager, fiscal administrator, or grant accountant here at LMB. For the grant, it's going to be grant 155. So you can look at all the grants by typing in GR and then looking for the one that you need. You can also put in these keywords. So if you know it's blue loop, you can type those in. It'll pull anything that matches those keywords. I'm just going to scroll down and find mine. There we go. It's automatically going to populate the project because that is what works with these lines. For our memo, remember this is your why, because that's your business purpose. And spend category, I'm going to put computer hardware. I'm going to attach my receipt. When I go to submit, I'm going to receive an error. It's going to say this type of spend is not allowed for the grant work tag you've selected. That's referring to the spend category here. So, oh, sorry for the wrong transaction. You can see which transaction has an error based on the little exclamation mark over here. Okay, so the spend category for this transaction isn't acceptable. That's based on the grant. So the grant does not allow for computer hardware as a spend category to be charged. So you would need to reach out to your grant manager within your department, your fiscal administrator, your grant accountant to figure out what you should put here. Or we can look at the mapping table, which we'll look at in a little bit. So I know that this grant isn't going to go through either way, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to keep this at computer hardware. And I'm going to take out my grant information over here. You just hit these little X's to remove something from that field. And just because this field was populated when you hit your grant doesn't mean when you clear this out, it's going to clear that out. So just make sure you clear it out across the board. Fund and cost center is required for every transaction. So you're not going to be able to submit without a fund and without a cost center. So I'm just going to reset these. And we're going to look at how to split a transaction. So we're going to hit split. You want to do it by amount. When you fill in these two, one of these two boxes, it's automatically going to populate the other one. So if we say we want to do 50% of this transaction to one cost center and 50% to the other, or we can say we want $500 to go to one, and it's automatically going to fill in that percentage. All right, if we leave the first line the same, you have to fill in the memo for every line. So every line of allocation and your baseline down here. Then you'll hit the plus sign, and you'll be able to see up and right how much is left to reconcile. So we've already done 500, we've got $982 left. We say 400 to 1, and we hit the plus sign again. We can see we have $582 left. There you go. And that puts us at 0. So then we need to update the memo, the funding cost centers that we think it should be associated to. Again, your business purpose is your why. Why are you purchasing something, not what are you purchasing? The nice thing about cost center is that it's always going to start with your department number. So this person's in 362. I can pull up 362 and see all of the cost centers that are associated with this department. Okay. So you can see I've allocated that. I have the percentages, the amounts filled, the memos, and the fund and cost centers. So I'm going to go ahead and hit done. All right. Again, nothing at the top needs to be filled in. We've got all of our required fields down here. And we're going to go ahead and submit. When you submit, you're going to get your details and processes here. I have to scroll up. It always scrolls me to the bottom. All right. And you can click your PCTV number and then process history if you'd like to see where it goes next. So you can see this card holder has 4 approvers. It's going to route to each one of their inboxes. And then the approvers need to work out between themselves who's going to approve for what card holder. If Jesse needs to approve all of Trevin's transactions, then Edward, Kelly, and Michael should all ignore that in their inbox. If they're all fine with approving, then once one approves, it will disappear from the other's inbox. So that's something that your approver is going to have to work out between each other. You should also work out with your approver how often they want you to submit transactions. So the plus side with Workday compared to Concur is we're no longer required to only submit 1 transaction per month. Because of the way that Workday is set up, we're not charged by report. So if you want to submit every day, you could. If you just have a couple of transactions a month, once it's imported, you could verify it, submit to your approver. If you have multiple transactions in a day, especially multiple a week, you may just want to do once a week, or if it works best for you and your approver, once a month, so that they're not getting a ton of notifications in their inbox. But PCard Office is no longer going to monitor how many reports you submit. We're going to refer to your approver to make that decision. Okay. So let's say we've verified this transaction and we realize, oh, we should have attached something else as a receipt, or we want to get back to it and pull it back, or even just see where it is. We're going to go to My Procurement Card Transaction Verifications. This wording is really important. It has to say My, and it has to have verifications at the end. If you look at My Procurement Card Transactions, it's only going to show you the transactions that have been charged to your card, and you're not going to be able to edit that PCTV. So the V is very important in this. If I click on this, I'm not going to have any, so I'm going to do Find. You have the option to do Find Procurement Card Transaction Verifications, but it's going to be much harder for you to find your things and to edit. So I still suggest My Procurement Card Transaction Verifications. So I'm going to find my card holder. I'm going to find the item that I just submitted. Did I not just submit? This one. All right, once you get here, you're going to see all of your transactions. So there have been a couple approved, and then we'll see a couple in draft and in progress. If it's approved, that means it's gone through all of the steps to be approved by your approver, by your grant if necessary, by your project, program, etc. If it's in draft, that means that you need to submit it. And if it's in progress, that means it's with your approver or with your. So if you click your 3 little dots next to your magnifying glass, you can hover over Procurement Card Transactions and then Edit. This will bring you back to your page where you've entered everything. So if you need to change the spend category, the attachment, this is where you're going to be doing that. I'm just going to exit out of that. If you're wondering where are my transactions and what step, who do I need to reach out to, that's where you can click your magnifying glass, click your process history, and it's going to show you who it's with. So you can see his approver sent this back because I submitted, I had him send it back. And so it's back with me because I'm the person who processed it. So something to keep in mind there. the last big thing that we want to go over before we kind of open it up for questions is the mapping table. So this is going to be a really good resource. If you are really familiar with your LEAP or legacy lines, you can just type in mapping. It's the second option with filter. And then you will type in your legacy line. I know the police training one really well. 253939. So you would type that all the way in. I know that 5.2 codes are generally the ones that relate to actual spin categories. And then you're going to see the legacy line, the fund that is most appropriate for this legacy line, the spin categories appropriate or available, and the cost center. And you'll see with this cost center, we don't have a program, region, project, or grant. It's just called 305 LMPD. So if you're verifying your transaction and you're like, oh, I don't know what cost center this is supposed to go to, you can go into the mapping table, type in your legacy lines if you know it, and it's going to pull up this information. It's also going to, this list of spin categories is anything that can be charged to this cost center and fund. So that's something to keep in mind. If we go back and we want to look at our grant from earlier where we weren't allowed to enter the computer hardware as a spin category, we can enter our cost center. And this comes in handy when I said earlier, you can type in the department and the some code words or a key phrase, and it'll pop up. Literally send it. And then click. Sorry about that. And then we can click OK. Sorry, everybody, I had to mute for just a second. Okay, so under the mapping table, based on the cost center and the financing source, you'll see the fund, financing source, the spin categories that are eligible for you to use, cost center, the program that automatically populated, and then your grant. So over to the right, I'm going to look for our grant that we use, which is 155 right here. Oh, scroll too far. Okay. And then if we scroll a little bit to the right, we're going to see our spin categories. So for this grant, 155, there are only 2 applicable spin categories, which is why it was giving us the error with computer hardware when we were trying to enter it. They should have entered safety supplies, or I should have entered safety supplies. So if you ever get those and you're like, well, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to put in spin category, you can always reach out to your grant manager, fiscal admin, or grant accountant, or you can try and come to the mapping table and see if you can figure out, based on your cost center and other pieces of information like your project or financing source, what spin categories are available for you. So the last thing I really want to note, which is not specifically inside of Workday, but I know that you all are feeling it. In Concur, we had about a 2-day lag for your transactions to come in once they were posted. In Workday, we're seeing like 3, kind of feels like 3.5 because they're imported after 3 o'clock every day. So if you're saying, well, I know I charged my card, I know it's posted, but I'm not seeing it, give it maybe a day or 2 longer than you would have, and then you can reach out to us through email and inquire about it. But a lot of times it's just going to take that extra day to come in. And that's pretty much the demo part. So I want to open it up for questions, see if there's any questions about the demo or about specific issues you're having with your PCTVs. See a hand raised. Yep, there you go. You can just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Hey, I'm Lanisha with Louisville Parks and Recreation. I'm not sure if you had mentioned this or not, but I'm having two different totals on mine. I don't know if you talked about that, but like the end price, or say for instance, I charge my card, Amazon or Leonard Brush, but the shipment is delayed, so they don't charge it. And then it's I don't know, like the invoices and what's in Workday is not matching up.
Okay, yeah, I think that's probably something we should reach out to the vendor and ask them for an itemized receipt based on what they charge. If they're having some shipping delays, maybe they're shipping part of the order and telling you, well, this is the full receipt, they should be able to break out the receipt for you, or you can highlight the portions of the receipt that are applicable to that charge and upload it.
Okay.
Krista, this is Melissa from the Health Department. So for the ones that are grant funded that we can't process, you all are aware, and we're just holding off on those until those are entered and ready to go. Okay.
Right. So all of your transactions for this cycle have been loaded into Workday, and we would expect to see them submitted by the end of the month on a regular, month. But since there are some things being held up by grants, we're not going to do as big of a push. You'll still probably get an email from us letting you know what's outstanding, because we can't differentiate between what's grant and what's not. But yeah, we are allowing extra time this month for those to be processed. But generally, you should have them processed in the same month they're charged.
Right. Okay. And I was able to get everything else to send through that was non-grant related. So it's just the grant ones that are holding out. So I'll just wait till they're entered.
Perfect. And I think that's going to be the middle of November. I know there's some FAs on here if they have more information about it. I think Richard raised his hand first. Richard, if you want to go. Oh, you got to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I have a fraud charge that I reported, and it's still showing up in Workday. How do I go about that?
Have you received your credit for it yet?
I have not.
Okay, so the bank will usually process those credits within a week or two. So you should be able to just charge them to the same cost center, put a receipt. Usually you have an email where you sent us where we've told you to call the bank. You can attach that as a receipt just to show us that it's a fraud charge, and then it's being canceled back by your credit from the bank.
Okay. Thank you, man.
And Scott, I see your hand too.
It's Patton. Sorry. Mixed up all the time.
Oh, we can't hear you very well.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
That's better.
That was a little better.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I may have missed this within the first 6 minutes because I came in 6 minutes late, but I have been able to process one transaction, and I'm getting notifications on other pending transactions, but I can't seem to find them to process them. Maybe I missed how to find them again in the first 6 minutes, but I'm trying to just locate them so I can process them.
Yeah, that's a common problem, Scott. In Workday, when they're imported in, you could actually go to your verify function that we demonstrated. But once you touch one of those, it actually goes into another function that Krista did demo called Master. It's like anything that you've already touched you didn't complete, Workday puts it in a draft mode over the functionality of the system. So if you go to your taskbar at the top and you find procurement card verifications, it has to be verifications on the end, and hit enter, you should see those that you are missing.
So when I
Nice.
do that, that brings me up with, let's see, find procurement card transaction verifications. And then that gives me the window where I enter the dates and worker and company and all that.
Yeah, so you want to go to my.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that way you're just pulling in your draft transactions that need to be finished.
Okay.
And you have to pick the one that says My Procurement Card Transaction, because if you don't pick the one with verification on the end, it's just going to give you a list of all your transactions and you won't be able to open it up.
Gotcha. Okay,
That
so
helps.
I found it,
All right.
but it still won't let me process anything.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and share your screen? This might be a good demonstration for everybody.
Sure. Give me just a second.
And Tracy, I'm coming to you next. Okay. So if you click on your magnifying glass over to the left, you probably want to click the one in draft. So go back again. Yep, your second one's in draft. There you go. All right, and then up by your PCTV 486, right underneath your search bar, you'll see 3 dots. Click those, and then click Action, yep, and then Edit. There you go. Now you're able to edit your transaction.
All right.
Just scroll down.
Thank you very much. I think I can get it from here.
Perfect.
Yeah, I see. I had already uploaded all of the photos and everything like that. And I just didn't have time to complete it that day. So, all right. Okay. Figured it out. Thank you all.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, Tracy?
Hold on. Okay. Yes, I have 2 transactions that are grant funded transactions, but they came in after we were told to stop without, any more PCard transaction till Workday was up and running. So what should I do? Because they're going to be like 30 days behind. And I still have them. I have to, because my grant has not been loaded in yet. So what should I do? Should I go on and submit it anyway, or?
Well, if it's grant related, you're probably not going to get it through because it's not loaded. So you're not going to get it through unless you change it to like your general fund operating account or something that you know has a budget. But I would talk to your FA or your grant manager, because of what we have been heard from other groups is that to keep you off from charging it to the wrong place to get it through and then having to JV it back, just leave it alone. And we may send you a reminder you have outstanding transactions, but if they're grant related, just let them sit. And then when it's loaded, you can finish it and submit it. And I did want to tell you all that from a budget perspective with Workday, if you remember when we were in Concur, you would do everything at the end of the month. And if you missed it, it didn't post till the following month. With Workday, that was a benefit of Workday. As soon as your transactions are approved by your approver, it posts to your budget. So you don't have to wait for a whole month. As soon as those grant funds become available, you all can process those, get them approved so they actually hit your budget. So I didn't know if people were aware of that. That is a change, and it's a good change, because now you're not held hostage of holding all your reports till the end of the month to make sure they post in the right cycle and all that good stuff. So,
and we have a couple FAs if they,
Thank you.
Microber, if you have anything else to say about grant.
oh yeah, certainly.
No, I would say you probably said it. I would hold on to really submitting those and verifying them until those grants are loaded. If there is instances where things need to get paid and it's an absolute emergency and we're going to lose services for whatever reason, just reach out to your FA or grant account, and we'll work through those instances. Luckily, knock on wood, we haven't had those yet, but I probably just called one up for everybody. So if I did, I apologize for that. But we'll work through it as best we can.
Cynthia, I saw your question. Your process history reads no items available because it hasn't yet been submitted. So it's still in draft status. So at the bottom of the screen, you should see your little submit button, kind of like bottom left, and that will route it to your approver and start your process history.
Yeah, so can I ask you a question, Krista? So I have already processed a few transactions. 1, 2, 3. I've already processed 4 and click submit. So my approvers haven't received those yet. Do you know about how long it would take?
Well, I think the issue here is that you have 9 items in this report, so there are still 5 outstanding to process. You can't hit that submit button and start the routing until all of the transactions are processed. Oh yeah, let me share my screen and show you.
Okay, I get it. I get it now. Thank you.
Got it. And while I'm sharing my screen, I want to go ahead and show you our website. Do you want to talk to it, Cheryl?
Sure. Okay, this is the PCard website that we keep up to date. A lot of valuable information. I would suggest, if you can, I would save this as a bookmark on your browser, because if you ever need to request a spend limit change or request an MCC to be opened, maybe buy or pay for your notary subscription that's normally closed down. Training, we have our user training. It's also available on the Emerge site on the MetroNet, but we felt like it was more useful here as well. So for our card holders, here's a video that we made,
Yes,
as well as so. Yes, Scott.
I think you just forgot to read.
Oh.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So this is the job aid that is basically what Krista demonstrated today, a step-by-step, and also there's a video. So it's very helpful information if you need assistance and we're not readily available. We're getting hit from all different directions too, so we try to be very responsive as usual, but sometimes it takes a little bit to get back with you guys. So please use the job aids if you can. If you're still stuck, we'll be happy to help you.
Perfect. I think it was Stacy had her hand raised, and then we'll get to Elvis.
Oh, I actually put it in the chat, but I wanted to know, how does the favorites work? I mean, when you put it over to your favorite and you go back, say the next billing cycle, does it pull it up and you can just process it, especially if it's the exact same dollar amount? How does that work?
Your favorites. Are you talking about under your profile?
No, okay, so you can, under your actions and your the procurement card verification, the 3 dots, you have options. You can like change or cancel your procurement, you can review your accounting, and then there's favorites where you can add it to your favorites. I guess that goes to your profile, I'm assuming. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, from everything that I've seen in Workday, let me go ahead and share my screen. From everything that I've seen in Workday, I haven't put this in practice, but if you hit that add button, and it's just going to pop up under here, under your favorites. And then I believe it's just that one PCTV. I don't think it's something that you can tie back to every report. So if you wanted to save like office supplies as your favorite spend category, it's not going to automatically populate like Concur kind of used to give you that drop down of your most used or whatever. I don't believe it's going to work like that. So I think the favorites is just to kind of add it to your profile so you can get back to it easier. I don't think it's going to work like that.
But you don't think it's something that, like you said, we can reuse each month without actually having to go in and enter this information every single transaction time?
That's right.
Okay, so we will have to do that every single time, put the exact same information. Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm sharing my screen. I can go ahead and show you your shortcuts. I'm not sure if you all have used your shortcuts yet, but if you go to your menu, you can see some quick apps and then click on shortcuts. You can add, so remember you want to do my procurement card transaction verifications. So I've already added it and you'll see it under my shortcuts right here. And then you can also add a shortcut to verify procurement card transaction. And that will take you right to your report or landing page for verification. Elvis, you had a question?
Yes. Hi, Krista. I had a problem with finding the PCard transactions themselves. I know I haven't made any transactions this month, but 2 employees have. And when I pull their names up, no data comes up on the screen.
Okay. Can you send me an email with who those employees are, and I'll take a look into when the transactions have posted and see if there's something. I don't think you should have any trouble. I know that you're an approver, so we can test it from there.
Okay, thank you.
Elvis. If you have any other questions about?
I do. I have a question. What does the cancel do? Does it actually cancel out the transaction itself? Because I'm looking in the invoice side. When we hit cancel, it doesn't necessarily cancel.
Yeah, even though it's just canceling it from your report, it's going to put it back under your My Procurement Card verifications to do later. Once you've made a transaction, it will never go away for the rest of your life until you process it. So, yeah, if you get in there and you want to remove or cancel it, it'll put it back over in your My Procurement transaction verifications to pick up later and do. So, yeah.
But it'll never move it back to verify. So
Right.
You should just hit change instead of cancel.
Yeah.
Ed Galligan, you have a question?
Krista, I think my question is very similar to what Ellis just asked. So I have a person who has me as an approver, but I have not seen any of his transactions go through. How do I know if someone else has approved that? Would that have been one of those transactions you showed us earlier?
So if you're looking for, if you're an approver and you're looking for your person's transactions, this is where the find procurement card transaction verifications would come in handy. My internet's running slow here. It's going to give you a pop-up box where you can look for a worker. Like I'm having some connectivity issues, so give me just a second. I'll talk to it, and then when it pops up, I'll show you. But you'll be able to select your worker or filter by worker, and then you can click the magnifying glass and look at the process history. As an approver, you really have to work with the other approvers to figure out who's going to approve for who, because it is going to go to all of your all's inbox. But from Find Procurement Card Transaction Verifications, you can see who's approved and who's still in draft. This isn't going to show you all of their transactions, just once they started. So if they have a transaction that they haven't touched yet, then it's not going to show up under this Find. Just needed to refresh, I guess. So if I look for you, Ed, here you are. You can select multiple employees too. I'm just going to look for you. It's going to show me everything that you've started that's been approved, and it would show me in progress. So if I want to look at this report and see who approved it, because I can see the status right here, I can click the magnifying glass and look at process history and see that Connie approved this report. That will take that report out of everybody else's inbox. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Brianna, I saw your hand too.
Yes, and it's piggybacking off of Ed's question. So the the old P card system, the P card transactions would go to someone's approver, but now they're being routed to the approvers that are set up for the cost center. Is that correct?
No, it's being set up for the approver that's in the supervisory org. Do you want to talk to the supervisory org?
Yeah, Brianna, what we did is we collected the information from you guys this summer and said, hey, who do you want to be your cardholder approvers? We've got, unlimited amounts of approvers that's allowed. So we collected that data and we looked into Workday, and the closest thing, it was under cost center approvers, which was nowhere near close what you guys were accustomed to and our approvers that were trained. And so we had to pick a method, and we picked SouporG. So the SouporG associated with that card holder is who would be able to approve for that person. Now, if you pick somebody in a different SouporG that you wanted to cover, we were able to add that approver to that card holder as well. So very easy to add whoever you guys want to be the approver. But the downside is there's multiple people within a SouporG, peers and those above the card holder that would get that in their inbox as well. So that's why we say, luckily, in your inbox as an approver, when you look, you should be able to see your card holder name in there, so you can kind of pick and choose who actually is your person that you would want to approve for. And let the other one sit until the person who's responsible for that person gets in there to approve. And the good thing is, if somebody goes on vacation, it doesn't sit. You have coverage there if needed. So we had to pivot and adjust our procedures to get Workday to work for us and to the best that we could, similar to what you guys were accustomed to.
Okay, that makes sense. So if anybody reaches out to me and says like, hey, I'm getting this random person's P card transactions, that means that there's something wrong with the supervisory organization.
Could be, and that's something that we can't really control. That's an HCM side where the SouporGs are maintained. But once that's corrected, that would correct itself,
Okay, so that's something I would just put a ticket in for?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I do know that folks from the HCM side are visiting departments and making sure that their SouporGs are established right, because it does impact other functions of Workday. So hopefully with time, they'll all be right. But if you see something really crazy, just reach out to us and we'll be happy to open a ticket for you or, give you direction on how to fix it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did anybody else put up their hand? Did I miss somebody? I don't think so. Oh, Sophia? Saw your hand for a second. Oh, there you are.
Okay, so I have two under my procurement transaction verifications that are in process, and I haven't done anything with them. Why is that?
I sent you an email last night. I was testing transactions because I knew we were.
Okay. And so that's the reason why the verified procurement transaction says no date and all that. Okay, great. Thank you.
But you found my procurement card transaction verification, so that's step number one.
Right.
There you
But
go.
now I have some that says draft that I did yesterday. And is there any reason why they still say draft instead of not in process?
I know Edwin sent a couple back this morning, so maybe he just sent back everything. And that's why it would be in draft.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
You should have a note if he returns, anytime an approver returns something to you guys, they are required to put a little note as to why they're returning it, so you have a clue. And those comments are down at the bottom of your transaction. So that's one hint for you. If you're not sure maybe why they returned it, they should explain it. Or they might just tell you to fix it. I don't know. It depends on your approver.
Fix it.
Trying to think of anything else important.
I can show you a couple cool things that Workday can do. So if you are in verifying your transaction, let's say I'm in this one, and I'm down here and I need to look at the mapping table. Instead of getting all the way out and coming back in, you can right-click any blue link and then see a new tab. That will leave your transaction so that you can still edit it. You can come to your other table and search anything else inside of Workday that you need to update. So that's kind of interesting. You don't have to completely get out and then get back in. You can kind of keep them both up on two screens and go back and forth. Do I have any other questions? Oh, I see Adam's hand.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So yeah, and you may have covered this, I guess. I'm just trying to make sure. So like what you were just looking at, like we were doing the mapping, let's say. So, in my brain, I'm used to Leap where, let's say if I wanted to see everything, maybe I've got some general funds and I have some grant funds. Can you do like those partial cost strings, or like how would you sort of recommend that over, or do I just search by name like Lahi?
Well, it really depends on what your end goal is. So if I'm looking at this and I know that what I'm looking for is in my department, 210, but I'm not exactly sure where it's going to fall under 210,
Okay.
I would just type in 210, and then it's going to pull back a full list of everything that's going to relate to 210. So that's going to be every fund, project, program, spend category, and it's going to take a little while because obviously there's a little bit. You can run this wide open, or if you type in mapping and choose the first one, you could always export it to Excel. And I think sometimes if you're working with a large data set or you want to see multiple values, it's easier to do in Excel with filters instead of trying to use the filter function on here. So it really depends on what your end goal is. The part I really like about the mapping with the filter is maybe you know the cost center and the financing source, but you don't know which spend categories are related to it. You can pull in all of that information with those two pieces of information.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Oh, I see Ed.
So Krista, if I need to spend money from an account that I'm not familiar with and not sure exactly how much money is in that account, how do I find out if there's enough funds to cover what I'm trying to purchase?
I think James Tatum is on the call. James, do you want to take that? He's going to be your fiscal admin that's going to deal with more of the budget side. Or I know Michael
And I'll
Burt.
chime in too. James has showed me how to look at some of those reports, Ed. I'm just not familiar enough with them to teach others or even show you what I know at this point. So James, I think, is our go-to guy. If you do have any specific questions, especially for the stuff that you and Ronnie purchase, we can get him to help us figure out how much money there's available.
All right,
Sure, and actually, yeah, Ed, that was what I was talking to you about yesterday. And next Thursday, you and I can take a look at some of those reports, and that'll actually drill into each one of those accounts and stuff. So I can give you some tips on that.
All right, sounds good. I'll set up a meeting for us.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Would you mind inviting me to that meeting too, please? I'd like to learn as well. Thank you.
Anytime you have an accounting question or you're wondering, what's my budget? What's my grant? How's that looking? How's my progress, especially as we get towards the end of the fiscal year? You want to reach out to your fiscal admins, your grant accountants, your grant managers, your Briannas of your department. The PCard office doesn't handle budgets. We're more working on, Brianna's laughing, we're more working on the technical how to verify, and then on the credit card side, maintaining security, making sure that everything that's being charged to as a card should be, it's within policy, we're following purchasing standards. things like that. Do we have any other questions? Cheryl, you have something?
One thing we mentioned in the last session, and you guys may be okay and not even worried about this, but we had a lot of folks wanting to know if their supplier had to be on their transactions for procurement card. Your supplier does not need to be in Workday to use your procurement card. You're still going to be able to go to Bootleg Barbecue if you need to buy something for a public purpose, maybe food or something. Probably not going to be in the system, and that's okay. We don't need the supplier for your PCards in the system, and that's the way Concur was too. We didn't need them in the supplier master of LEAP to use it. So just wanted to tell everyone that when Krista went through the PCard verification, the supplier at the top, sometimes it may populate if your supplier is in there, but if it doesn't, there's no need to be concerned if it's not in there because it's not required. All right.
Do we have any other questions? We have about 8 minutes left. Well, technically we have about 38 minutes left, 37, but we were going to try and get you out of here within an hour. Give you a little bit of time back in your day. Well, if y'all don't have any other questions, make sure and visit our website. Our PCard website has a lot of really good information, a lot of really good forms that are out there, which I think you'll find really helpful. We put a lot of work on the front end of those. You'll find validation errors, how to verify, how to find your transactions if you walk away from it or it times out, how to split transactions, everything we went over today. And like I said, this is recorded, so we will let you know how to find this recording as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.